Hello, everybody, and welcome to another multi-dimensional self with myself, Gary from Alternative Interactions, and
Robert Lomax.
thank you very much, Robert. Um, Today it's part six of our little series of multi-dimensional cell, and in part five we kind of left talking about awareness and consciousness. And it was quite clear from what had come from that program that we needed to delve more deeply into it and get the perspective of whichever multi self or lacquer or antimonide wants to come in and guide us through what they see. So Rob,
Okay.
shall we start with awareness or something?
Yeah, I'll give you Antemides' description of it. When he said this description to me, I welled up. Tears flowed down my cheeks because it was kind of like touching origin and realizing that, we had this seething thing within inside us. So I'll use his words. I'm going to read them out. Awareness is embryonic, primitive, and elemental, a state of developing, and it's without end, unqualified, unlimited. Awareness can exist without consciousness. It is like a deep, deep sleep, and it is without action. It is the totality of calmness while being openness without end. It's beautiful.
That is beautiful. Yeah.
Whereas consciousness requires, you can't have consciousness without awareness. We use our consciousness relative to one thing or another. We refer one thing against something else. We reflect on something. Um, we judge it. We view it. Um, it's an integral part of an experience. Um, and it's a relativity to context and situations. We could go much further into perhaps his description of consciousness into the unconscious, higher consciousness, subconsciousness, um, because we do, as we were saying earlier, Gary and I were having a little chat, we were talking about the feeling body and feelings and the consciousness of the feelings. So that they're not just an awareness of a feeling, oh, I'm feeling this or I'm feeling that, but they have a consciousness of themselves. They are interacting with other feelings, they're interacting with other thoughts. Um, so we've got these two distinct things. And the first one is very, very relative to origin, because when they were talking about origin, they're talking about something from nothing, the duality of something and nothing, that all possibility. And when we think about this awareness and we touch that feeling that's just been described, we can see that there is all possibility. And it's really quite a beautiful thing. It's not tainted by judgment, all possibility but this or but that. Um, Consciousness, again, something different. And that's where observation comes in. And so I think I've got something coming from either Antimonide or Alaka on observation, because they're showing me some telescopes, and we can talk about uh, the information that in these telescopes in a while.
Yeah, superb. So awareness is almost something that we're not aware of
Yeah,
in its duality. So we're aware of something, but we don't know where it comes from. We can't put our finger on it. And then we start to think about it, which comes in the consciousness. And the consciousness, I got, as you were talking about consciousness, I got shown something, and it was a squash court and two players in the squash court with rackets, and they're hitting a squash ball. And the consciousness is you have the thought, so you hit the squash ball, and the squash ball will hit one of the walls and bounce back at you
Yes.
and reflect back to you or the person you're playing against the thought or the process or the energy or the frequency of the consciousness of what you're trying to portray. But that could not happen unless you had the awareness that there was a racket and a ball in the court in the first place.
Yeah. And it was something else we touched on in our we were talking about perspective through consciousness, and that when we observe something, we're observing it from a particular perspective. There might be lots of different perspectives in, four walls in a room. You could go and stand at each one of the four walls and have a different perspective on the other three walls, or what's in the middle of the room. So this is where observation changes what there is, which is what scientists talk about. So more than that, really, we think we're observing something. Okay, we accept we're observing it from a perspective, from a perhaps a judgment, perhaps a prescribed way of thinking, or what we believe. So therefore, what we perceive is going to be judged by what we believe anyway. And yet, this is where we fit into with the penny drops, because what we believe has been corrupted. So our perspective through our consciousness onto awareness has been corrupted. So we think we know our consciousness. We think we might know awareness, but we're perceiving it through these manipulated constructs. So the awareness of awareness is different to the conscious awareness of awareness, if that makes sense. He's talking about our words can get very muddled,
They
but
can.
yes.
No, that makes total sense. When we go back to the double slit experiment of Thomas Young's, and it can be particle matter, it can be wave forms of light, it can be anything, it can even be grains of sand. The experiment always has the same effect. When we observe something in consciousness, we change the outcome of the experiment, if we put it that way,
Could say we
because
create a different outcome because
yes,
we are creators.
correct, very well put. So we create a different outcome via our creational ability, but that comes through filters that have been placed upon us by the environment, the energies around us, and our own mental construct of experience and fears, prejudices, whatever else kind of thing that comes in. We are not able to be very easily open minded in the observation of something because of the way this system is set up. I mean, you spoke previously about the mind program, and I think this slots in very, some of the key words that Rob was talking about in our penny drops, the mind program. We're inside a mind program. We're only allowed to think within certain parameters. We're only allowed to think inside a certain box of a certain size, a certain consciousness bubble, if you want to call it that, that we can bounce off and we understand. we also have what something called Rob called the forgetfulness program.
Yes.
So that when we come back into this realm, we can't remember what we've learned. We've got to relearn it all again. We then have to go through all these pointless, in many respects, experiences again that the soul or source has had once, twice, 1,000 times. And yet the awareness of that is not there because it's a subconscious, it's prime, it's an elemental part of our being within the realm. It's part of the primitive system that allows us only to be able to be conscious to a certain degree. Expanding this is going to be one of the big things that's going to be coming up in the future. It really is, because we're going to be expanding. And that's, I think, where we probably would be good to look into. So I'm fairly certain that awareness, unconscious awareness, is going to expand. You've spoken about the eternal body feeling and creating, and fundamentally, this is human design, everybody. I've spoken about human design, and obviously, Maten, who I do work with from Plutonic Planes, does human design and speaks about human design and how the energies or frequencies from the planets affect the gates and the centers within the body, not the mind, the body. That is then that feeling, that energy coming from the body goes to the mind. The mind then looks at it in a conscious way from the unconscious, from the unawareness of the awareness. And then we decide to act or react or have an emotion based on that external stimuli.
Yeah. Talking of external stimuli, I've got antimatter here in me and presence, and I can't. I'm having a job to stop my face from bursting into laughter because he's piled my lap full of telescopes, pirate telescopes, and as a cinema screen appeared with the word awareness, and I know that probably only the British audience will understand this, but I've got the Pearl and Dean music coming on, which is an old advert in cinemas that we used to go to. And then you knew the film that was about to start. And so he's having a bit of a laugh about this, trying to infer that, that this is, whilst it's serious stuff, it's fun. Living should be fun. We can have fun together. So yeah, maybe if you all could envisage, this metaphor, this it's energy, it's information, it's being presented. Um, it's it's not necessarily not real because it's real information. Okay, you might not have a telescope in front of your lap while we're talking about this, but it's the information and the energy. It's just the way in which we're presenting it. A metaphor, a story, however it works, he says. It's how it goes. So I'm picking up the first telescope and having a look at awareness, and it's going all fuzzy. And he's saying, yeah. And imagine now you put your specs on and you have two. What you're seeing of awareness is very distorted. You're seeing it through your current perspective. Can you ever know what awareness is like? Because you are looking at it through your conscious perception. You are seeing consciousness reflected or distorted onto the nature of reality, onto all possibility. And when you're looking at all possibility, you're looking at yourself. When you're looking at that level of the universe, that is you. So this is as much about the visceral feeling of what we're doing as anything else. So, okay, we're changing telescopes. Different colors, a blue and a red. Some kind of duality. So, red, danger, blue, calm. When you observe something, you are taught, perhaps in meditation, you sit and you observe. How do you observe? Do you observe through your consciousness and your current constructs? Observing is not the same thing as awareness. You are still observing awareness. So, what are you going to do? Are you going to observe something that you don't want to see because it might contain information that's very difficult? Or are you going to observe something that gives you pleasure or enhances you? So you're already making some kind of quasi judgment about what you would prefer to see. So you have a preference already within your mind with these two telescopes of a preference of what you wish to see. And is that an open mind? Is that a fluid mind? So we go a little bit further down to looking within the conscious mind. Got another couple of telescopes. One is really blurred and the other one's got a big crack in it. Again, this is a form of judgment or a form of observation, softening what you see. Oh, I can't quite see. I don't have to see. That, I suppose, is quite comfortable. It means that I've seen enough, or I can't see any further, or I'm stopped from seeing. So there is sometimes a blurredness to what you can see, but it is your consciousness that blurs what you see. And in the same way, there is a crack, a fissure, a divergence, like two lenses, or one lens that's snapped so it slides past, so that the perspective, the curvature of the lens is completely changed. So what you then do is you, within that telescope, you would put your focus into one schism or another schism in order to be able to see, because the two together don't make sense. But what you're doing is you're looking at two halves in a completely different convex lens. So again, corrupted perspective. Another couple of telescopes. Do you feel like a pirate? He's saying.
Arr.
Oh, this is fun. Right. One, I'm seeing sparkles falling down. And another one, I'm seeing sparkles moving up a bit like rain in one and rain going up in the other. Energy movement, he says. You can all see energies in different ways. Movement upwards, movement downwards. But if you're looking onto awareness, you are seeing how the energy of awareness moves up or down, how it flows. Whereas awareness is different. He's showing me an experience I had before. I think if you could kind of listen and take yourself to this point, if you could imagine you're standing in a place of blackness, emptiness, kind of like what we're talking about, this awareness. And you can see energy flowing to you. You can feel it. Feel it coming to you from all directions, everywhere, rushing into you, faster and faster and faster, top, above, below. It's going into you. It's extraordinary. And then the energy flows out from you. But you're in the middle, the energy is flowing in incredibly fast and flowing out incredibly fast. You are this point of creation, of energy, of source energy. And that is what like to be source energy. That is to be at one with the awareness of it. Okay. Okay, so let's get the hats off. Let's get the pirate stuff out of the way. Let's be a little bit more serious. And I'm seeing him writing at the moment. Let's see what he's got to say. I could talk to you, he says, about energy and awareness, about universal vibrations, the pulse, how it comes on, how it goes off, how the energy forms things in your holograms. But in many ways, it's about the way that you interact with it, with your feeling body. Because if we talk to you on an intellectual basis, what good is that? That is talking to your mind, but not to your body, not to your soul, not to the energy of yourself that fluxes, that is awareness. And as you begin to enter this experience of ultimate all possibility, source energy, all possibility, then we have an awareness which is very different. Awareness within awareness, to use your language. We wouldn't describe it in quite the same way. But within this energy, within this feeling, which is not distorted by consciousness, perspective, or your corrupted thought programs manipulated around you, but within the depth of this origin of you, which exists as soul source within you now, it is all possibility. It is creativeness. Or like I talked before about using creativeness within the etheric realms, that trying to change things using earthly constructs was just to move one set of bricks for another. Whereas at these levels, you really do create. What we would like to do is to educate you, if I use that word advisedly, because it does not mean that we are superior. It kind of sounds that, let us say, inform you, if you wish to be informed. So it's not a directive. But we would like to inform you of ways in which you can be more creative, to create changes and to be what you create. I know this has probably gone in a different direction to what Gary and Robert had first talked about, but we feel it is very pertinent at this time to show you that you are the ones with the power, each and every one of you. But by taking you into such places of the way in which you can feel like this, you can feel yourself. You can create all manner of things. But again, consciousness comes in, observation comes in. And this is what Orlaka talked about. And she's written much on this, about the upgrading of the energetic bodies, so that your energetic bodies are being upgraded physically as well as energetically. So the way in which you interpret your feeling body will be different. The way in which your thinking is, your duality, your subconscious works will be very different. So your consciousness changes because your bodily perceptions are changing. Your feelings are becoming more regulated. They're not stuck in duality or have to this or overcome that, fear this or whatever it might be. Your perceptions will change because your bodily vibrations are changing. You've been told this by lots and lots of different people. And I know I'm telling it to you again. And Olaka talked about the penny dropping. But again, we can see perhaps different pennies. There's no harm in explaining the same thing again and feeling the enormity of the power that you have to create. Accepting that you have this power. What stops you? Belief? The bloody program around you? Sorry, that came out. Yes. When you look at these levels of creation, we use these levels of creation. We use all possibility. We have situations that we allow, I suppose you would call them questions, but we don't have questions from a corrupted consciousness. Our consciousness is different because our feeling bodies are different. So when we're using our consciousness, it's not from one particular perspective. Now, that's a big jump. Imagine consciousness that doesn't have one particular perspective. That's something perhaps you cannot imagine when we've so eloquently talked about perspective and how it corrupts. So this is the way in which we would utilize these creative levels of source and all possibility. We allow probability to form. So we allow the universe, us, we allow that part of us to produce possibilities, probabilities from all possibilities. Nothing in the way, no conscious perspective. So we are using the ability to create without boundaries. We don't say we only want good, we only want bad. Good or bad doesn't exist for us either. Not in that sense. Allow all. That is the nature of the universe. But as benevolence, in allowing all, we still have choices. But we make those choices not in good or bad or different, but with a consciousness that is slightly different to yours. I've gone off piste. I've gone off tangent a little bit because I said we were going to talk about how you can create. And yes, I do remind you that acceptance that you have this power is the first step. Accepting these bodily changes, these emotional changes that allow you to think in different ways. Oh, rejoice in these bodily changes and the energies that are happening with you. I find it difficult to explain the depth and the enormity of these changes, the feeling behind them, what we feel for you, and what we know will come to pass. But yes, I have taken the podium, so I will step back for a moment and yes, allow Gary to perhaps reflect back what I have said, but also fully aware that I have yet to go beyond talking about the acceptance of your power to ways in which you can use to create within those levels of awareness with a different consciousness and seeing awareness in a different way. Because we think in a different conscious way, and you do, it doesn't mean that you still won't be able to create like we create. And that's not what I'm saying. Um, but you are beginning to learn to create in different ways. You already create. You create your world around you because you believe that's what it is, because you're told to believe that's what it is, and therefore you create it. But boy, oh boy, when you really see what you can create and you start individually going beyond the belief that you can create and you just know because you are, then the ways in which you can use this source energy and all information with a consciousness that is more open, because your bodily, emotional bodies have changed, then you will be able to start creating different things. And this is very, very exciting.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to take us back a bit in a way. So, we're questioning the consciousness and the perspective of our consciousness, but also what we're talking about here specifically, and something that I want to in human design, it is said that in 2027 that there is going to be a change to the physical body. I was given 2027 years ago, and I'm still not certain what 2027 means. But when we start talking about the light body or the body changing, the unawareness of the awareness of the change that we're about to step through. In the last program, we spoke about when the penny drops, we'd taken a step onto a mat that said welcome. And the black door opened, and the room was dark. We're not aware of what's in that room. It's dark. And the reason why I think the room was dark is we don't have the awareness, and our consciousness cannot perceive,
Yeah.
we cannot imagine what is inside that room. The room is only black because we don't have the frames of reference to understand what that room, or the doorway as we go across the threshold, represents. Now, in human design, they are talking about we have gates and centers, and these centers control, heart, throat, emotions, solar plexus, all sorts of energies that we feel and we interpret via our brain. Human design states that we're going to get two more centers. And for me, I've always been questioning of how, how my observation of and my frames of reference, my consciousness cannot perceive how we are going to change from this to something else to enable us to lighten up the room as we go through that doorway that we spoke about in our last program. You mentioned the Pearl and Dean music in the cinema. Now, for me, that brings back old memories. And please, audience, if you don't know, I'm sure in the theatres around the world they always had a certain ditty of music that would come on, and then the main event would happen. The fact that Antimedes spoke about the Pearl and Dean, or you, Rob, were given that as a Pearl and Dean moment. For me, what this represents is that the curtain's pulling back and we're about to go into the main part of the show. a a change of awareness that we're still not aware of, that will expand our consciousness to enable us to be able to perceive things that we can't perceive yet as we step forward over the threshold into this room and we light it. And we then create the new reality in this room, not from the old perspectives, not from the current ways we think, from a completely new way of thinking. Now, it appears very much that 2027 is the period in which this is going to happen. I firmly believe that in the coming months, July, August, all the way through, we are going to see massive changes to society, our consciousness, and the awareness that we're not aware of as we prepare to physically change from where we are now to a different place, a different frequency, a different vibrational energy, something that I can't even imagine it. I really can't. I can feel it's going to happen. I'm being told it's going to happen.
I'm being shown, Gary, 2 points here. I can see them on you, and they're circular gold bands that go through the shoulder and just below the clavicle, all the way through, two big circular gold bands that are vibrating. And they're to do with mental perceptions and our consciousness, because we've talked about, sorry, we've talked about our emotional upgrades. We're talking now about our cognitive perception and the upgrading of our cognitive perception. So here we're talking about your third eye, your throat chakra, your expressions, your seeing, your hearing. What we're also talking about is knowing, just knowing. As you entrain more and more with the isness, with the awareness that we've been talking about, you may begin to, if you see it that way, it's a way to see it, to see these energies as they vibrate. And it's something you can actually work with as individuals, to perceive your energy in such a way and work with it and allow it. So you can experiment with it, uh, allow it as part of your consciousness, and even allow it to be a TV screen, to see it altering your reality around you. When you allow it to alter your reality around you, you will start to see this reality in a slightly different way. You will begin to see more holographic effects of your reality. It's interesting because that was actually new to the Robert program, if I call it that. So that's new information for me. So
This
I
goes
was
back to
responding directly to you.
yeah, absolutely. And I've got a question for Antimony. I have spoken recently about a show that I did with Joe, where I was with my son and we were talking about the reality of this realm being a hologram, and we observed the buildings vibrating and changing and fluxing. Was this what we were being shown as we were discussing it? Were we being shown what you were just talking about?
You are seeing the nature of reality. The nature of reality is a hologram. So it was entering your perception as it is. So it is different levels of perception, different levels of consciousness, as we have said, manipulated levels of consciousness, bodily affected levels of consciousness, and consciousness of awareness within the awareness of consciousness, if we use your muddled language. It is muddled for us. Now I think of it. it's then tying in with the creative levels. I'm still not missing a beat, I have to say. I go back to this. Things change by what you believe and what you think and what you create. And or like I had spoken to you before when you were talking about fifth dimensional upgrades, how people were going to perceive it in slightly different ways, but how the nature of a hologram can change just like that. If the information changes, the energy and source energy that exists means the hologram and the representation of that hologram changes. What we said to you, perhaps in the first program, was when Robert was talking about what it was like to be involved in such a way and talk about the kind of the natures of reality and aliens. We don't consider ourselves aliens in that way. How we can transform the nature of your atmosphere. So as a ship moves in, we change the information. The energy regulates itself, so the atmosphere does not exist for us. No sonic booms, no heat shields. We can go through your oceans at incredible speeds because at that point, the ocean doesn't exist for us. That is using creativity. Sorry, he's gone
No,
off.
that's
He
brilliant.
does that. He sort of goes off piste and
But that
no, he
wasn't. That was
doesn't.
actually the perfect answer. Seriously, Rob, that was the perfect answer.
Can I
Luke,
say that what you said following his podium, I get the chance to come in, he says, yeah. Um, your summing up, your explanation, and your perspective was actually a very, very good perspective, considering that we've just had a conversation about corrupting perspectives on awareness. And I thought your summing up was in contrast to and beneficial. Uh, the two parts just flow like that. Brilliant. Thank you.
no, thank you. So fundamentally, my understanding of the situation where I was describing to my son, and we were in this zone, both of us, joint energy, accepting that this was a holographic realm, being the true creators of this reality, the realm then reflected the creational energy of me to show me that I was indeed in a hologram because the building started to wave and shimmer. So I had created a different reality within the reality of the perception of our mind control that we have. So I adjusted just slightly the frequency of my thoughts and the perception of physicality changed. Imagine how powerful we're going to be when we start to understand this as we upgrade, and we're gonna upgrade. We're going through this process now. We're all feeling a bit strange at times, over emotional, not emotional, splits within people that we've been friendly with for a long time, different perceptions of what's going on. This is all part of our awareness changing, and our consciousness is trying to catch up because it's suddenly in panic mode almost, because the consciousness has been in a very nice bubble, and now that bubble's been expanded. Oh my God, what does this mean? What does that mean? So as we accept our own power, we're actually going to speed up our awareness, being unaware awareness. I understand why they think our language is terrible, by the way. I agree. Um, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy because we will start to understand and feel and see the new perspective with no limiting beliefs. The no limiting beliefs was, mentioned. And when Luke and I were walking down the road and the buildings were wobbling, I had disconnected from my limited and limiting beliefs. I was just in the zone. I was almost daydream talking, just going with the flow, just in a different kind of mindset. The belief system was being challenged. My creative energy came through, and I was showing myself, I was showing me the reflection back of what I was talking about. We can all do it.
And I think as we start to upgrade our emotional bodies, physical bodies, and our consciousness changes because of our emotional body changing, because it's of its perceptions, and those fear drivers and letting go of constructs and all of the rest, we're going to be able to perceive a fifth dimensional reality. Well, as you said, we're going to be able to see what's in the room.
Yeah. These are tricky concepts, and hopefully we're explaining it in a way that makes sense. But fundamentally, you also don't have to do anything particularly about it because it's happening in the background like a sub program. And this sub program is gonna upgrade us. We're seeing the split now. We're seeing two different realities almost. My reality is completely different, I should say, to one of my neighbours. Their reality and how they see the world is completely chalk and cheese to me. We're both living in the same reality, but their perception is completely different to my perception. So we're having two different experiences, just as we spoke about very early on with the car journey, going through a town where somebody wants some clothes and somebody's hungry. The person who wants the clothes will see the clothes shops. The person who's hungry will see every single takeaway. Both will not see the same things. They might see the odd, obvious thing, but they will not see the subtleties or the difference. The consciousness is fixed at the moment. It's about to expand.
And as you do so, your minds will be free to ask a different set of questions. For my part, I am happy to answer those questions. So I'm glad to be working with you, Gary, so that I can respond to your questions in metaphorical and direct way. I am, as you have probably perceived, very different in my approach to Orlaka. I'm a little bit more direct. She is much softer. She is not female. Of course, she is hermaphrodite. She is non-sexual in that way. So it's not my masculinity. It's just a difference in character. We have different characters. We're not, how do I put it? Because we join with one another and we have an idea of community self does not mean that we are not individuals. It is our perspectives on our world and on life. But for my part, I am willing and happy to engage in direct questions with you. So I'm hoping to be more dynamic with you. It's something that Robert hasn't appreciated, but he's happy to talk about it as I am now. And I very much look forward to that. If you do not mind me standing on the podium from time to time.
I appreciate that greatly, and it's something that I would really, really like to. And I'm certain the audience watching would like to have the ability to expand upon and ask key questions, because although I'm fairly good at asking questions, I don't always ask the right questions. And the audience watching, we have an amazing opportunity, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity. We have the amazing opportunity to ask a perspective of which we cannot comprehend, that we are moving towards. Now, something that I think you said or Rob said, I think probably you, just before we came on, or it could have been the beginning of the show, you said that we're upgrading and our realm is upgrading, but you also mentioned that outside of our perception, the universe is also upgrading. Could you expand or give us a little bit of a glimpse of that so that we can understand that it's not just us. It's not just us that are expanding in consciousness. The whole universe or consciousness or toroidal fields of consciousness are also expanding. Please explain to that, if you could, please.
Orlaka spoke a few weeks ago. She talked of like a big clockwork movement, seeing the universe as wheels within wheels, cogs moving. And it was only at certain points where they engaged with one another that something could happen. A door could open when things aligned. We have been talking about awareness. We have been talking about all possibility. We have been talking about not necessarily the origins of the universe, but we have been talking about universal energies of creation. You are universal energies of creation. But of course, you take part in that element of the universe, perhaps unaware or unconscious, I should say, because you will be aware of it at an unawareness level of yourself, at the sleep level, or the, as we described, how awareness exists, but consciously not aware. Oh dear, oh dear. I'm tripping myself up. The universe is upgrading. Dimensions are transmuting. This is the nature of the universe. The nature of the universe is grow, unlimited in all possibility, not all probability, but in all possibility. So there are many of us here at the moment observing you, seeing your changes. I'm not using the word grow because, in a way, even when I talk about the universe growing, it's very difficult for you not to put pejorative understandings on that in terms of better, growing to something better, changes. The vibrations of the universe are changing. Three Eye Atlas that you mentioned, Gary, earlier to Robert, is something as much a part of that as well. It has higher dimensional beings involved with it, but it is also an intergalactic, interdimensional, I would say, object, but that would be the wrong description of it. Information field with lots of different information within different informational fields. Interdimensional information fields. So you can imagine it as a package with different vibrations in different densities and different informations affecting the different dimensions around Earth and the planets and part of your solar systems, because we were talking about the upcoming fifth dimensional element of Earth, a different dimension of Earth. So this is an interdimensional package of the universe itself. But there is no reason why, as enlightened beings, oh, another one of your pejorative words, as light beings, let's say, where we and others cannot be involved in that process, allowing and growing, enjoying and experiencing, helping, monitoring on some levels, perceiving, feeding back information. So perhaps see it as a multi-dimensional, I wouldn't say craft, element, energetic element of the universe itself.
When I spoke to Robert earlier, I mentioned Three Eye Atlas and the fact that it had gone from planet, and I'm using the fingers here because I don't believe in this holographic realm that we're in, that we have physical planets. I'm not saying there's not physical planets out there in the universe. I'm just saying in this current perception of my consciousness and reality, I see energy sequences that we call planets. Three Eye Atlas has visited all the different planets as well as the sun. And in by doing so, the frequency packages or the change of frequencies, it would have been enabled to drop off and reprogram or tweak. So if we could imagine we've got a radio station and the radio station's gone slightly out of tune and there's a load of interference, what Free Eye Atlas has done, it's redialed every single planet, every single star, universe that we perceive as back into an alignment with a clear signal which will enable us, our unawareness, our non-aware selves, to upgrade via the frequencies coming in. Free Eye Atlas is a big deal, and it will always be known as a big deal in history once we have the consciousness, perception to understand exactly what it did. Very, very important. And we were probably talking about this a year ago, 9 months ago, perhaps, when it first came into our reality. Very, very important key point in our timeline, not everybody else's timeline, in our timeline, to enable us to step now onto that welcome mat with the cogs turning and clicking in to the next part of the change of reality. Now, it has been said that our the change or our reality is going to speed up in time as we get closer to these changes. Is that something that is relevant or you could talk about as well, please?
Changes in perception. Changes in perception, as we talked about, or sorry, as Olwaka talked about, of energy return, creation, and the experience of what you create. So much of what you create at the moment, there is some delay in the way in which the universal consciousness, the isness, returns to you your energy, you experiencing your energy in conjunction with others. And there seems, from your perspective, to be sometimes a delay. I mean, if you entered a restaurant and swore at somebody, then your energy return would probably be fairly instant, wouldn't it? But some of these other energies have a while to interplay. So the perception of things speeding up is to do with the way in which your energy returns to you as a creator. That's probably another program in itself. Whilst I've got the podium, I feel we've probably reached the end of what we have talked about, and I find it interesting that the subject that you first came in on was awareness and consciousness, and you were concentrated on human self's perspective of awareness and consciousness, and we've ended up talking about universal consciousness and universal awareness. even though you are that universal awareness and consciousness. So, uh, I, as I said before, I'm very much looking forward to some deeper questions. And this is an example of the questions that can come and the way in which we can act organically, because I'm here as an individual. I haven't shown myself in my fullness, perhaps in this way, in these multidimensional talks as I do to Robert, but uh, I'm here.
Greatly appreciated. It really is. In true gratitude for this opportunity. Now, I'm going to be cheeky before we leave the show because we have kind of come to the end of this segment. Are you, as an observer of this, you said everyone's watching us. Are you, as an observer of this, and somebody who's actually probably in quite a fortunate position to be able to inter or multi-self with Robert, are you enjoying your interaction with us? And are you enjoying, or enjoying is probably not the right word, but are you finding it a fascinating experience for yourself to experience what we're experiencing almost hand in hand? And are you relaying that to your fellow beings in your realm?
There are many ways in which interdimensional beings are experiencing your world. Some of them are just tourists. It's okay, isn't it, to be a tourist, to see what's going on, to observe in what level of consciousness. There are, of course, connections, soul level connections between some of us, like with Robert, but that all of you have had interdimensional experiences. So you're all connected to us, or different races, different vibrational beings at different ways. So, talking for myself as an individual, I find humanoid interactions fascinating. That's something that I have been involved with all of my life. I have already explained that I undertake many lectures, or lectures are very different. We exude energy, and the information goes with that. And we do not judge the information that comes to us. We allow all. Can you imagine that? Allowing information, all information to come to you. I've gone off tangent. I'm sorry. Allowing all information to come to you and allowing the full potential, the all possibility to come from that. So that the consciousness isn't deciding what's information you need or not need. It's informed at a different level as to what is appropriate. Well, that will take some explaining. But from my point of view, being within Robert, part of my consciousness is within his. So I experience it in a slightly different way to some of my colleagues. Um, I'm not saying that's why I'm, oh, let's get away from the ego. Um, that's perhaps unusual. Therefore, my voice might be listened to a little bit more than some others, but that's probably the politest way I could put that. And because I'm involved in Robert in that way, my emotional body is regulated. I am not affected by his emotional turmoil. He still has emotional turmoil. But I perceive it, but I don't perceive it in the way that he perceives it. So it is perhaps something a little bit beyond that from my perspective. I can't speak for all other races, but from my point of view, there is a joy in seeing what will be become. And we are so happy to be able to talk with you directly, one to one. Much has been said. You're going to be able to talk to aliens, interact with them, talk with interdimensionals. You are. This is not my ego. This is not Robert's ego talking. I'm talking to you. The information that I'm giving you, none of that is egotistical. It's information. Information as we perceive it and we see it. So we are, yes, we are excited, but it's something more than that. It's our interconnectedness with you, the fact that our souls are interconnected. We're seeing our multidimensional selves change. We're seeing our own souls change. We are involved in that. Why can a soul not have a multidimensional aspects of itself changing its multidimensional aspects of itself? Isn't that wonderful? To have all information in such multidimensional ways involved with the whole thing, becoming aware of your true multidimensional nature. So, yeah, from our perspective, yeah, that again, there are, I wouldn't call them committees. There are people that are drawn by their natural vibrations to interactions with Earth community in different ways. Each having a different role, I suppose, if you would call it that. As for the convergence of the roles, and certainly as Andromedans in the way in which we perceive things and the way in which we work, there are other multidimensionals that work perhaps in slightly different ways. When we converge, I suppose it's probably the best way I can talk about it, where we meet either physically or mentally within different group meetings. We are allowing more of the quantum computer, the just is, the all possibility to provide information as we go forward. So where we're creating from is an interaction. We are creating interaction because we have permission. You are part of us. We've talked of permissions before. We've talked of being asked to help at some levels as well. So we are creating interaction at these levels of creation. So they're much more organic. They are not through levels of your kind of consciousness. Our consciousness being, as I explained, slightly different. So yes, we've taken perhaps a simple subject. How are you involved in this? To perhaps something much wider. But I am very pleased to be able to speak to you and answer your questions and see how easily the questions flow as well as the answers.
Yeah, brilliant. I'll sum it up very quickly. It's just like family coming back to each other, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the joy of having family come back to you in a way where the consciousness and the awareness of that family member coming back to you is expanded in a way of you can have a real meaty conversation with them rather than having to dumb down the conversation that you would have had to before.
I feel as I'm all, this is Robert, I feel as I'm all spent out. There's nothing more to say.
I think that was a brilliant conversation. Thank you very much. It always flows, it always develops. And, you know, wow, I really enjoyed that. I hope the audience did as well. And I'm sure we will come up with something very, very interesting for our next show. Not sure what yet, but
these levels of creativity he's putting in front of me and showing me. So there's something really quite interesting with that. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. I look forward to that one. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to Rob Lomax on his YouTube. Rob's got a Facebook page and a website where he has two books that are available free on PDF to read. And Rob also has physical books if you want that, which if you contact Rob, he can sort you out. So thank you very much, everybody. And with that, it's a goodbye from me and
Goodbye from me. Two
bye,
Roberts.
everyone.
Bye.